Welcome everyone to our second episode of Family Planning. My name is Dr. Jemimah, obstetrician gynecologist, also the founder and CEO of Wills for Life and Wills for Life Healthcare Limited. I am so happy to be here, and this is Wills for Life by Dr. Jemimah. So come along with me. Today we are going to be talking about non-hormonal contraceptives. Karibu. Non-hormonal contraceptives are contraceptives that do not affect your hormonal profile in any way. And we have various methods of non-hormonal contraceptives. In fact, they form the bulk. And the first one that we have is the barrier method, where we have our condoms, our diaphragms, our spermicides. Most of them will be there. The second methods we have is our non-hormonal contraceptives such as IUCD or intrauterine copper devices. The third one is that we have is permanent sterilization, where we have our vasectomy and our tubal ligation. So let us go on to our barrier methods. And this is the most common in our country, so is what I'm going to talk about. We have this. This is called the male condom. So we actually have various condoms. We have the female condom, we have the male condom, we have lubricated ones, we have studded ones, this is a ribbed one. We have various types of condoms, and condoms are based on size, on the modifications that they have done to them, and they are the only method known that prevent sexually transmitted infections, also as they prevent pregnancy. On paper, with perfect condom use, it is said that they're 97% accurate, or that is a 3% failure rate, but per ground or in normal use, it actually has a 13% failure rate. So how does condom prevent pregnancy or infection? It creates a barrier between the male penis and the female vagina, such that all the sperm or ejaculate is deposited on the latex, and then when the male penis ejects from the female, then it goes away with all the sperm. And of course, because there are no liquids changed, then you also prevent infection. Okay, so today I'm going to be demonstrating how to perfectly use a condom. So number one, you have to check that the expiry is correct. Like this one expires in Feb 2027. We are in 2024. So you see it already has good time for us. You check that you can still feel that, how can I say, the sponginess, that it's not held together tightly, because that tells you that the air that they kept there is no longer there. Okay. Then you don't use scissors, knives, or anything to open this particular thing. It usually has the serrations. And I hope to God I'll be able to. Yes, you just open it like that, and then you're able to get to the actual condom. Okay, so you don't need to wash your hands, but it would be nice to. So once you get to the condom, you hold here, this top here, and you make sure that you've held it, that there's no air trapped in between. So you hold, and then you check that it can actually roll down easily. You see the sun can roll down. It tells you that this is the correct way of wearing it. If you do the reverse, for example, like this, it will not be able to roll down. You can see it's refusing. Yeah, so this is the correct method. You hold up, and then you're able to easily slide it down. So I'm going to be using Mr. Broom today as my model. The size is not compatible, do not worry. But once you hold here, you slide it down the penis completely, and you can see it leaves this area on top, and then you're able to slide down. As I said, this one is ribbed. Apparently it's for maximum pleasure. So there we go. So once you are done with the deed, of course that one you know how to do. Once you're done with the deed, immediately the ejaculation happens. Some men begin to become flaccid, and what happens is exactly what's happening with my broom. You can see the size is not compatible. So all the fluid or all the semen comes from the top here and it flows into the vaginal wall. And remember, for so long as it has entered the vaginal wall, it can swim up to go into the uterus and up into the cervix, uterus, and the fallopian tubes for fertilization. So once the ejaculation has happened and the man feels that we need to change, you can always change the condom, by the way. You hold it at the edge of the penis, and then you come out from the vaginal orifice holding this particular area. That way you stop the ejaculate from moving into the vaginal orifice. So assuming now we are out of that space, I'm going to bring it up for you. So assuming we are out of the vaginal orifice, then now you're able to roll it up, and then for extra protection, not really necessary, but just because you're a good human being, you hold it like that. Okay? And then you can now throw it away. Please don't discard this in the washroom. It will clog up. And then if you're using this, as you can see, is lubricated. You can see I have oil in my hands. If you need extra lubrication, you have to be sure that you're using a water-based lubrication. Anything that is oil-based, and oil-based is from that oil that you use at home, massage oils, and all those things that you use during foreplay. If you use them, then they can actually damage this. This is latex. They can actually damage the latex. So you want to use something that is water-based. I think the most commonly used is KLY or KY jelly. So something that is water-based cannot harm this, and then that can be put on the vaginal orifice or on the male penis based on how you want to use them, but make sure that you use water-based. You can also buy condoms that are water-based or have extra lubrication because they'll be water-based. Hope that helps, and let's get 13% to at least 3%. Yeah, thank you very much. Now we go into discussing the IUCD or intrauterine copper device. I have one here with me. It's not your regular copper T. It doesn't have the T that we are used to. But a copper T is a method of family planning that uses it has a plastic bit and then it has copper around that plastic. Okay, so if you can see closely, we have this plastic bit that's going all the way, and then now we have the brownish thing over here, which is now the copper. Okay, so this copper is actually the family planning. Prior, they would only insert the plastic, but the failure rate was very high. But with the inclusion of the copper, we noted that copper actually irritates the lining of the uterus. Okay, so when it irritates the lining of the uterus, it creates a very harsh environment for the egg and the sperm, either for the sperm to go up into the fallopian tubes or for the egg to come down into the uterine lining, or any implantation to occur. Okay, so it actually works just by irritating the lining. But because it is irritating the lining, and as you can tell, it is a foreign body, it's about 4 centimeters. So this whole thing here is called a loading device. So from here to here, you can see here we have numbers 1, 2, 3 up to 12. So it allows us to count, or rather to of the uterus. So we do something we call sounding, and then it tells us how big is your uterus from the fundus, which is the top, up to the cervix. And then once we sound, we are able to measure with this blue thing. Then we load the copper into this loading device, and then we go up with it into the uterus, and then we remove the rest. So the only thing remaining is actually just this bit. So don't you worry, it looks long, but it's only up to here that is left in your uterus. Okay, so because it is a foreign body, one thing that is going to happen is that your uterus is going to contract to try and remove this thing from your body. Okay, until about 6 months, then it settles in. So you'll find that you have more cramping and more bleeding than normal. So if you usually bleed for 3 days, then you may see that you bleed for 4 to 5 days. If you usually have no period pain or just slight period pain, then you may notice that you have increased period pain, especially a day or two before your menses and then during your menses. Okay, then the next thing that most people complain about is infections. So I want you to notice that we have strings here. So these strings go all the way up into the copper device, and those strings are the ones that are responsible for any recurrent infection. And why is that so? When we put this, we put it in a very sterile environment. Very sterile. But in case you get an infection and that infection is not treated or not treated correctly, then that infection can now deposit itself into the strings, so that it now takes up the infection from the vagina into the cervix and sometimes all the way to the uterus and into the tubes. Okay, so that is why we urge anyone who is putting a coil, if you have had an infection within the last 1 month, then we do not advise you to put a coil. Then we actually first do a speculum. We check on the cervix. We make sure there is no infection. At that time, we also try and do a pap smear. Once we are sure that those two are clear and you're not pregnant, once you're sure that all those are clear, then we're able to put the coil. One use of the coil actually is as an emergency contraceptive pill. So not pill, but emergency contraceptive. So if you had sex and you're not keen on a baby and you know that you're trying to protect it, some people put the coil because again it will irritate the lining and then the pregnancy will shed off. But that is not what is documented as the use of this device. This device is used for family planning. Okay, so one major drawback is if you get infections, kindly treat these infections early and on time so that you don't have upward streaming of infections into the uterus or into the tube. 2, if once it has been put and especially you're having cramps or contractions, kindly please go for your checkup. So when you put it today, after 2 months, we check that it is still in place. We do a scan, just a regular scan. We're able to see the coil because it has a mark on the scan, and then we can tell that it is still at the fundus. So if it has moved, then remember it only works up to where it has reached. So if it has moved, it is possible for you to get pregnant at the top of around the fundus area. And that is how you end up with babies who come out holding the coil. Okay, so it is very important. It's very important that you have your coil checked at 2 months, at 6 months, then every year as you're doing your regular pap smear, they'll do a scan to make sure it is okay. In the past, we used to be told you check the strings to see if it is still in place. Please don't, because sometimes as you're checking the strings, you can actually dislodge it yourself and then end up with an unintended pregnancy. When it has been used well, this thing is 98% efficacious, which means only 2% failure rate. And one, because you don't have to remember anything, it's up there. Okay, so the only thing I'll ask you to remember, check when it has been put, check that it has been put, check for whether it has moved. Okay, and then the last thing that you want to check is that if you get any infections, they are treated early and on time. Thank you very much. Any questions, place them on the comment. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe as we go on to the more permanent methods. Thank you.